All right, guys. Appreciate you guys for joining us today. So I'm going to go ahead and give my speech, and then we'll open it up to a Q&A. So I want to thank you guys first for being here today. I want to address a topic that has dominated global headlines for the last year, but is often misunderstood, the Israel-Palestine conflict. Today, specifically, I want to focus on the Palestinian experience and shed a light on the consequences this conflict has had on the Palestinian people. I chose this topic because the humanitarian aspect of the Palestinian struggle deeply resonates with me. I've watched the conflict unfold through the news and social media, and I've often found myself asking, how does the world continue to let millions of Palestinians live under occupation with little hope of justice or self-determination? The more I learn about Palestine, the more I realize how urgent it is to bring forward the voices and experiences of the Palestinian people. My relationship with this topic comes from a desire to understand both sides of the conflict, but particularly the Palestinian perspective. In the global narrative, we often hear about the geopolitical aspects of the conflict or the historical ties to the land. But at the heart of the issue are real human lives. Generations of Palestinians who have lived through displacement, occupation, struggle. This isn't just a political debate. This is about justice, dignity, and the right to live free from oppression. To begin my research, I focused on the historical roots of Palestinian displacement. The event that has been had the most impact on Palestinians is the Nakba, which also translates to catastrophe in Arabic, which occurred in 1948, and over 700,000 Palestinians were expelled from their homes under the establishment of the State of Israel. Villages were depopulated. This was a pivotal moment of loss for many Palestinians. Many of their descendants still live in refugee camps in Lebanon, Jordan, and other territories in the Middle East. One of the core issues is the ongoing Israeli occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, territories that were captured during the 1967 Six-Day War. For Palestinians, this occupation represents a daily reality of hardship and restriction. The construction of Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which are illegal under international law, has further fragmented Palestinian land. The presence of checkpoints, barriers, and military oversight severely restricts the movement of Palestinians, making everyday life, whether it's going to school, visiting family, seeking medical care, an ongoing struggle. In Gaza, the situation is even more dire. According to the Human Rights Watch, Gaza is often described as Israel's open-air prison, with nearly 2 million people living under blockade imposed by Israel since the rise of Hamas in 2007. This blockade, which severely restricts the movement of goods and people, has caused immense humanitarian suffering. According to a report by the United Nations titled Occupied Palestinian Territory Humanitarian Needs Overview 2021, 64% of Gaza's population lives below the poverty line. They lack clean water, electricity, and adequate health care, and these conditions have created extreme hardship for ordinary Palestinians, especially during times of intense conflict. But what often gets lost in these discussions is the psychological toll it takes on Palestinians. For decades, they've had to live without a state of their own, under military occupation, or as refugees. Under these conditions, according to a report by the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics in 2023, titled Conditions on the Palestinian Population on the occasion of the World Population Day, about 37% of Palestinian population is under 15 years old. This means that many of them have never known a life without the threat of violence or the limitations imposed by occupation. For these young Palestinians, the future often seems bleak and peace seems like a distant dream. In my research, I was particularly moved by the testimonies of Palestinians who have lived through these hardships. One story published in Reuters titled Gaza's Medical Students' Dreams of Becoming Doctors Tested by War by Saleh Salem reported about a young woman named Asil Adu Hadaf in Gaza, and how she was due to become a doctor, but due to the Israeli airstrikes, she's now living in a tent and her university is in rubble. Stories like hers serve as a reminder that there are individuals here with dreams, aspirations, and the desire for a normal life. Another key aspect I explored is the Palestinian right for self-determination. For decades, the international community has supported the idea of a two-state solution. However, the continued settlement expansion, the lack of meaningful negotiations, and the deep mistrust on both sides have made this goal seemingly impossible. For many Palestinians, the question is not just about borders, but about the right to control their own lives, to live with dignity, and to return to the lands that they were displaced from. Looking forward, there's still many questions that need answers, like what role should the international community play in brokering peace? How do younger generations on both sides view the conflict? Is the two-state solution still a viable option, or does the situation now require a different approach? Ultimately, the path to peace will require addressing the root causes of the conflict, the occupation, and the displacement of the Palestinians. As I continue to research, I hope to explore more deeply how international actors can support a just and lasting resolution, one that respects the rights and dignity of Palestinians while also ensuring security for Israelis. The Palestinian conflict is not just a geopolitical issue, it's a human one. By amplifying the Palestinian perspective, we can better understand the full scope of the conflict and why resolving it is not only a matter of diplomacy, but of human rights. Thank you guys for listening. And I want to just go ahead and open it up to a Q&A. So David, if you'd like to start, you can go ahead and ask a question regarding my speech.
Okay. Do you think as foreigners, giving them aid, what kind of influence would it have on them?
As foreigners giving aid to the Palestinians,
Yeah.
or what kind of influence it would have? I mean, aid is aid. So if they're, if they have lack of electricity or water or food, I'm sure any aid will help. If anything, it'll be a good influence because they'll know that they're getting help from, people that care.
And do you think the military would, the governing bodies over the civilians, do you think they would be opposed to it?
That's not for me to decide. That's just a matter of where the government decides to put their money. Do they care about brokering peace and taking care of other people? That's up for the government to decide. I can't really decide that one.
Okay.
But I appreciate those questions, David. Thank you. Oz, do you have any questions?
Excuse me. I suppose my question would be at the near end that you were regarding potential change like between do we keep we let them solve it or we get involved? Um, do you think we should possibly I don't know, possibly assist in like a war effort or just humanitarian purposes and just keep going with that?
I mean, my speech wasn't regarding whether we should go to war or anything like that. It's simply to shed a light on the Palestinians and their plight that they have to deal with, living under occupation and under blockade. If anything, it's just about informing and getting their stories heard, and so more people
Uh,
can get informed and understand the situation. So, with more understanding comes more empathy. So maybe perhaps with learning some of this, you can empathize more with the Palestinians.
so I guess my question was more of do you think we should get more involved? That's what I'm asking. Like,
If
do
you're
we
asking me
provide
that, well,
more?
then of course, yeah, of course we should be more involved. We should be helping Palestinians as much as we can. But again,
Mhm.
it's not really up to me. It's up to the government, and we'll see what happens. But I
So,
appreciate that. That was a great question. Lucas, you have a question?
Sorry, I realized I was muted.
You
So
good?
yeah, so you did mention that there are millions of refugees living in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and I understand a lot of like pressure is rightfully put on Israel, but these countries, over generations still have not granted citizenship to these Palestinian refugees. Do you think that while also applying pressure to Israel, the international community should apply more pressure to neighboring Arab states with large refugee populations to grant citizenship and equal rights to Palestinians living in camps after all these years?
That's a very interesting question, and I'm actually not sure the answer to that one. Should they be taking in more Palestinian refugees? I'm not so sure. You know, to put it on the other neighboring countries, they're not the ones that kicked the Palestinians out, and then to say that they have to clean up the mess is just kind of like it's kind of a sucker punch. I mean, it's just like out of nowhere. Like, why would they have to you know have to be responsible for something that happened, 75 years ago, over 75 years ago, and then they're having to clean up the mess of it. And how do you integrate the Palestinians that they're their own people. They have a land. They have ties to this land, whether historical or, personal. These, are people with aspirations who just want to come home. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's up to any country, any other Arab country to take in the Palestinians. If anything, it's up to Israel to grant citizenship to the Palestinians and allow them to come home. So thank you for that
Great
question,
answer.
Lucas. Thank you. So yeah, that was my speech, guys. I really appreciate you guys for listening. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.